I wasn't sure. And you guys were all crabby at me about using the bell last week. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use the bell then. We'll see what happens.
I was waiting for the bell down there, and then I'm like, hey, there's nobody here. I should go to the bell. I'm Tom.
Right. All right. I think we're ready to begin. Oh Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall declare your praise. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. Alleluia, alleluia. Give glory to God, our light and our life. Oh God, let us worship Him. All right, our reading and the sermon this morning is based on the epistle today, which is kind of unusual for us. I usually preach on the gospel. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. So this picture of the armor of God is one that we kind of hear a lot. And I just want to point out two things to this picture. You'll have to hear the rest of it in the sermon. But the two things are, one, who is the bad guy? Who is the enemy that Paul talks about here? Who is the enemy in our story here in the epistle? The enemy is Satan. And because the enemy is Satan, we have to have armor that works against Satan, not against other people, because other people aren't the enemy. Now that's kind of an important thing for us to always keep in mind as we think even when we have disagreements and arguments with other people, whether they're Christians or not, that they are not the enemy, that Satan is the enemy along the way, and that God arms us with His word and gifts so that we can receive Him. All right, back to singing hymns. It's been too long. So this is our hymn for this month, which is actually based on that reading from the epistle, which is partly why I ended up preaching on it this morning. Fight the good fight with all your might. Christ is your strength, and Christ your light. Lay hold on life, and it shall be your joy and crown eternal. Let's sing it together. Fight the good fight with all your might. Christ is your strength, and Christ your right. Lay hold on life, and it shall be your joy and crown eternally. Let us pray. O God, the source of all that is just and good, nourish in us every virtue and bring to completion every good intent, that we may grow in grace and bring forth the fruit of good works. Through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let us bless the Lord.
Praise be to God.
The Almighty and merciful Lord, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, bless and preserve you.
Amen.
All right, young'uns who are off to Sunday school, off you go with 12 and up. If you can stay here for a little bit for the presentation, that would be great, though. But all of the other young'uns, go with Mrs. Nunnick, please. Anybody going? We don't know whether we're coming or going, which is not that unusual. All right, I've got a few announcements before our Higher Things youth speaks. First off, we have a new edition of Holy Cross and Prayer, which you can get after services, and they will be available in the fellowship hall if needs be. Secondly, there was a handout that also came after church, and this handout lists all of the Bible classes that are going on. But I thought that I would point it out to you for just a moment. We have a lot of Bible classes happening, including deaconesses classes are doing John. We are doing Daniel in our men's classes on Wednesday and Thursday morning. The Lincoln Hills Bible class at the Sorellis will be doing 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Although I don't feel like they start this week. I don't see anybody that goes to that class, but I feel like they start next week.
They start after Labor Day.
Right.
No, this is after Labor Day.
This would be after Labor Day, so I'm honestly not sure. You can ask me, or you can... See, this is what happens when Pastor Meyer's gone, is that everything just sort of... We don't know what's happening. But that should be all of them that are going on. So I hope you can try to come for one of those. This is a beginning of the cycle here. It's always a good time to start. I will pass this around again. This is the book, He Restores My Soul, that I talked about last week at the beginning of the class. A book of essays really on the Christian life and comfort under crosses, written by about a dozen wonderful Lutheran ladies, including our deaconess. We had a lot of people sign up for it last week, which I was super excited about. I think we had about 84 pre-orders or somewhere around there. But that of course means we got to go for 100, right? I mean, we can't just leave it at 84. So I'm going to pass it around again and see what happens. So please pass that around. Let's see if I had anything else. Are there any other announcements before I hand this over to our youth? Marian.
I just want to mention choir rehearsals are starting this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And if you are new to our church and would like to sing with us, we'd love to have you. I hear some really good voices out there.
Voices you haven't heard before.
But I have not heard before, so I think you maybe ought to think about it.
Awesome. Wednesdays at 7. And then sing probably 2 or 3 times a month. Is that
3 times a month?
Probably 3 times a month. That's about right.
Speak to me if you have any questions.
All right. Very good. Any other announcements? All right. Then with that, let's go on to phase 2 of the morning. For those who are unfamiliar, Higher Things is a youth organization that's been in existence for just about 20 years, and they put on conferences every summer. And this is, I think, the 6th time in a row that we've gone with our group, and last year we had a bunch of kids, about 14, along with chaperones and everyone else. So I asked if our Hard Things gang, are you guys a gang? Yeah, definitely a gang. All right, and I will be right here to, I kind of wish I had a big gong. Some, you guys remember the Gong Show? Some of you are
Yes, I do.
old enough to remember the Gong Show. That would have been helpful.
So, we've kind of done a couple presentations before, after we go to higher things. And so, we just went, now we're going to do it again. This year, just a fair warning, it's going to be a little different than the past couple of years. So, be ready for some fun. So, just to like kind of lay out, this year we went to the conference in Tacoma, Washington. And there was about 600 participants, right? 600 different people from generally the West Coast, but there were people kind of from all over. We had 3 countries, I think, some Canadians, and the Barretts, for those of you who knew, also attended with us. So that was super cool.
Where are the Barretts from, do you remember? Bahrain.
Yeah, so that's a little ways away. So this is our lovely group picture that we took at the Higher Things, and there you can see all the lovely people that attended with us, and we'll talk more about this later. So just a kind of basic overview of what Higher Things is it is where youth kind of catechized age and through high school get together with a bunch of other Lutherans and learn about what they believe in. And so kind of the 3 main categories of what we do is we worship together, we learn, or more accurately, the pastors or other teachers teach us, and then we also play. We get to enjoy time with other Lutheran people all over the West Coast. So these are kind of the 3 main categories of what we do. And the services that we attend are services that you will find in the worship book that we use every single Sunday. The things that we learn are doctrines and topics that we discuss in Bible class, and that are topics that people often wonder about and like, why I don't know about this. And so it's very helpful to kind of learn about these things from people who know what they're talking about. And then after all of the teaching and the worship services, every night we get to kind of have fun with the people that we met all day. So this year, I'm doing kind of an explanation of what one day is like at Higher Things. So Wednesday, which is the 2nd day we're at Higher Things, the first full day, you can see these are the many, many things that we get to do. Don't worry, I'm not going to try to make you read those right now. I'm just kind of showing you everything. The stuff that is in blue, that is the teaching, when we get to learn from different people, whether they're choir directors, pastors, or teachers. The red is all the different church services. And there's one little green thing over there from like 9 to 11 p.m. That's when we have our free time to kind of have fun with each other. So, without further ado, I'm going to start at the very beginning of the day. The most important meal of the day, breakfast with Richard Todd.
So for breakfast, I just had a giant bowl of cereal like that. Every day.
So that was breakfast for Richard. After breakfast, some of us got to participate in choir, which was not required, but you know, we like to sing as nice Lutherans. Not required, but we wanted to. And so, Sydney and Toby are going to quick talk about what we did in choir.
Okay, so choir was a lot of fun if you like to do it. You don't like, you have to get up earlier than other people so that you can get to breakfast and then go to choir. So some people
Add a lot to this being tired.
yes, we were all tired and the airport didn't help at the end. So choir was a lot of fun. We just sang, we practiced songs for like the last service we're gonna do before we leave. And some of them that were like for another service during the day, but those don't matter.
So that was choir, lots of learning, and it was the person who taught us was the cantor Paul Sulek, who is the cantor at the Lutheran Church St. John's in Seward, Nebraska, right next to the Concordia.
Who all was in choir?
Me, Sydney, Richard, Jack, and Mr. Wismar. Yes, that's all the choir people. Thank you. After choir, we kind of start our day off after, breakfast with our first church service, Matins. Now, I'm going to talk about the first service. Matins is not a service that we as a congregation use that often because we're so blessed in that we get to have the Eucharist every single Sunday. But it is a service that is in our worship book, and one of the breakouts that I went to, emphasize that. What's so amazing about our worship services is that they're all based on Scripture. You look next to all the words that we're singing, and you just see the little text next to that references, okay, this is where that was in that. So every morning, before, any of the learning started, we got to participate in Matins, which was a beautiful service, and it was wonderful. After Matins, we had our plenary session, which was our big learning session. And I'll let Jack talk more about that.
So plenary is interesting because, as you saw on the schedule beforehand, after breakfast and worship, you can go off and kind of take your own classes that you get to choose from. But before that, you have a plenary session where a pastor will come up and do a lecture or on a certain topic. This topic was on the 10 Commandments. And before that, there are general announcements and stuff. It was very interesting this year. The plenary this year was taught by Pastor Blomsch and Pastor Peperkorn. It was very well done. I really enjoyed it. And if you want to ask Pastor Peperkorn about Moses and his horns, feel free.
On the board, you can see some of what was taught. That's at the very beginning. They referred to make sure we knew the wrong answers to the law, why we have the law, which is, wrong answers is if they knew what was right, they would just do it. So we know how to get to heaven, and in order to motivate us to do the right thing, and so that we find true happiness in obedience. All the wrong answers. The correct answers that they informed us of were so that they don't kill each other, to show them their sin, and to give them a guide for how and where to love our neighbor. For those of you who remember from Catechism, those are the 3 uses of the law. So good to reinforce those things. And here is a picture of our very own Pastor Peperkorn with a white wig on. I don't know if that's true. Do you think we should tell them why you have a white wig on, or just leave them to
In my own defense, I was one of the pastors that helped start Higher Things, and for the whole week they were calling me one of the founding fathers of Higher Things.
To be fair, it's also been the past 6 years.
Yeah, but this year I just decided if they were going to call me a founding father, I should at least have the powdered wig.
So that's where that came
That was the last day. It was a little goofy.
Yeah. After our teaching session, we had lunch. And now we get to talk about it! Yes! I had chicken nuggets every day. Every single day. They were amazing. And I also took chicken nuggets and pizza and I put them together. Best meal ever. You have to try it when you get home. Chicken nuggets and pizza. Okay, so that's me about lunch. Dad, get sure to make chicken nugget pizza. Keep that in mind. Not everyone had chicken nuggets and pizza every day. There was other food. Don't worry. After our next meal, we had another worship service. This time it was Vespers, which is kind of the early afternoon service. Another beautiful service that unfortunately we don't get to use because most of us have work and school, so we can't come to church in the middle of the day, which is unfortunate. But it was wonderful to be able to use it at Higher Things and to hear everyone singing. After this worship service, we had our first breakaway session, which is where you get to choose kind of what specific topic you would like to hear. So Sydney is going to talk about
Nobody
this.
else wanted to do breakaway B, and I got one of the most interesting topics for breakaway B. So a lot of us went to this one either with me, like at this time, or the other time, because they do at least each thing twice. And mine is dating and marriage. Is purple the new white? So it was basically about dating and marriage, and it used the Bible to tell us that, and he just made a bunch of jokes to help us kind of comprehend, and he used our language, as you could say. Yeah, so that's pretty much what this one was about.
Yeah, he taught a difficult topic in a way that we could understand.
Purple is boy is blue and girl is pink Is it?
So that was breakaway B. Breakaway C is Richard, Richard's going to talk about this one.
So, I went to breakaway C, which is the problem of evil. I forgot the pastor's name, sorry. And he focused on how there's suffering in the world and how to cope with it. And then he pointed us to the Bible and to the cross and how Jesus is our comforter.
Yep.
Amen.
Yeah. After breakaway C, we have another meal. These things keep playing. It's great. I know. All provided. Now I don't know why Jack got to talk about this.
I don't either. So.
I'll join you.
So dinner, I never changed my meal. I had pizza every night. Yeah, it was the only thing that really caught my attention because they didn't have as big of a category as last year, but
Last year had legendary food.
yeah, it was amazing last year.
They had beef nuggets.
The pizza was very delicious.
This is someone else's meal.
Yeah, I don't know.
This was actually Chloe's. This is Chloe's meal. So she does not have pizza every night.
But it looks cool, so I put it on. It's a
Some people are better at choosing their meals than others. After dinner, we had our final worship service of the day, which is evening prayer. And as you can see, there's incense. And this is a service that we actually do get to use. This is the very same service that we use during Advent and during Lent on our Wednesday night services. So many of you guys have sung it, and you know what a beautiful service it is. And they used incense, and it was just wonderful in general. So that was evening prayer. After evening prayer, we had one more breakaway. Hi. So in breakaway D, I think about 5 of us went to Jesus Christ the Exorcist. I always have problems saying that word. But it was really, really interesting because he talked about how demons and angels and what the difference is, obviously. And then he was talking about how Christians cannot be possessed because they have Christ with them at all times. And you found that very good. It was like an audible sigh that went through the room, like, thank goodness. And at the end, he played an audio track of an exorcism, which was terrifying because you could hear this woman like screaming in the background, but through it all, you could hear the pastor chanting, very calm and collected. And it was terrifying, but also calming to know that they could handle that. So, yeah, that was breakaway D. Now, I'm just going to stay here because I talk about the next thing too. The fun time. Okay. So, through the whole day, we kind of always look forward to free time because there was 2 or 3 different activities that they give us to do. Like, some of the different activities were, there was archery tag, which I didn't go to, but some of our youth did. I heard that my brother got to face off with my dad. That's pretty cool. I think there's a picture. There's a picture here somewhere. I think it was the staff who won, but unfortunately, not able to put that out there. And another one of our favorites was the chalk drawing contest, which I think there were like 20 participants. I don't know, I didn't go, but our own youth, Lily, the lovely Lily, she got 3rd place in that.
Gave you points. What's the deal with points?
There were tetramorphs, like all the different. Oh, this is our tag. Dear Father.
That's me on the left. Can't you tell?
And another thing was medieval makeover. I don't know if that was the name this year, but this is Mr. Wismark. He was riding. I don't know what he was riding. It was something. It was a lion.
It's supposed to be riding a lion, but it was kind of wimpy.
And so, all the different churches at Higher Things were separated into 4 different groups,
And you kind of got points for those if you won a contest during free time or throughout the day.
Kind of similar to Harry Potter.
Yeah, everyone guys know Harry Potter. And so this is Lily's chalk drawing.
Wow.
It was very nice. And this is people drawing the chalk. It's kind of dark. You can't really see it very well. But it was really, really cool.
It was sadly vandalized. You noticed
Yes,
that?
at the end somebody vandalized Lily's drawing, but that's not in this picture. It's very sad. But one of our favorite activities that we did was actually on Wednesday night, where most of our youth kind of got together and we played this game that you might have heard of called Spoons. Except we kind of put a twist on it in that the spoons were hidden in the room and you had to find them, and it took like 10 minutes each time. It was really fun though, and it was a good bonding experience. This is a great picture because this is without Caleb. And Jack looks exactly the same. That's one of my favorites. So my sister wants me to limit it to just Wednesday, but I don't want to. So this is actually at the airport after we were done, and we had a huge delay, like 4 hours. Terrible. 5 hours. So we were playing this game called Mao in the airport, which was super fun. We had a great bonding experience. And we were all so tired. But it was great. And so, I have so many pictures, because pictures are great. This is Carson Barrett. In case you don't recognize him, it's been a while. So this is, okay, finally done.
Now we are on to the adults. We'll talk about a couple more things really quickly, and then we will.
Yeah, so we had 13, I thought we had 14, but 13 youth and 4 chaperones, which included me. The way that we have tried doing this in the past is sort of rolling the cost of the chaperones into the cost per student. So I think that if you were to do that 10,682 and divide it by 13, 14, is that right, Tina?
Yes.
Yeah, Tina is our treasurer. That's how you would come up with it. So that's the per student cost. We get a few discounts. They give me a free registration because I get to wear the white wig. So we get a few discounts here and there. But that's what it costs. And then the monies come from fundraising, from some years we've done door offerings. We didn't do a door offering, as I remember, this last year. And then the rest comes from the children and parents themselves. Walt?
They did an offering for scholarships. Remember?
Right.
Between the teams.
Right. Higher Things did an offering for scholarships as well. So that's kind of roughly what it costs. I don't know what the cost per student would be if you were to take the chaperones out. That might be interesting to know as well. Probably $80 less per person, maybe something like that. But that's all right. Don't worry about it right now. But that's roughly how much it costs to do it for the week. So it's not cheap, but it is I would say a week of intensive learning and worship and fellowship. That's kind of how I would put it.
Okay, there's one more slide, and you guys can talk.
Chaperones. Why should we keep doing this? There were four chaperones. This year it was me, although it's barely fair to call me a chaperone because I'm pretty useless as a chaperone. But me, Mr. Wismar went, Chris Williams went, Chloe and Brianna's father, and Suzanne Nunning, who's down teaching Sunday school right now. So those were our chaperones. Why should we keep doing this? Walt, you got any thoughts on that?
Obviously, you can see the results. This is what I would call a Lutheran intensive, and I think it folds in with what we were talking about today. You guys were building up your armor, right? There's a lot of stuff out there in the world. These topics were not simple, easy topics, right? Some of the things you looked at, saw, heard, it was, exorcism. But that was a pastor Fort Wayne University professor who was teaching that class. So there's a lot of build-up here. There's a lot of girding of armor for what our youth are going to do with. And I don't like to use the word youth. These guys are young Lutherans, and we need to support them.
Thank you, Walt. And is there anybody, Tina I know has been a chaperone before, Ben Nichols has been a chaperone before, Pamela has been a chaperone before, Levi has been a chaperone before, so we try to kind of rotate around who the adults are so that different people are able to kind of get the experience along the way. And obviously some of the chaperones at least are going to be parents on top of everything else. So yeah, it's a remarkable thing. Is that it?
Well, that was just a quick talk about. So just kind of let everyone know next year. So this year the theme was Sanctified in the 10 Commandments. Next year the theme is Concordia, which means like harmony, living with one another, right? And what's really cool about this is the next year they're having 5 conferences at 5 of the Lutheran Concordias. And what's really nice is that one of them is at Concordia Irvine. So we actually get one in California this year, which will be super great. So as you can see, one of them's at Concordia University of Nebraska, University of St. Paul, University of Chicago, University of Wisconsin, and then the last one is University of Irvine. So my guess is that's probably the one we're going to go to, since that's the one that's significantly closer than all the rest of them. So that's kind of looking ahead to next year. Now, to finish off our presentation, our youth have decided that we needed to let everyone know exactly what we got to do by the best version that we can, which is by song. And just bear with us. It's a little funny, and I hope you all enjoy it. Okay, guys, are we all ready? Prepared? Very prepared. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. One conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 5 hours of now at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 6 lost Caleb's. Where's Caleb? 5 hours of now at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 7 Mountain Dews, Carson. 6 lost Caleb's. Where's Caleb? 5 hours of now at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma, Washington. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 8 families, 7 Mountain Dews, Carson. 6 lost Caleb's. Where's Caleb? 5 hours of now at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. Caleb played nice squares, 8 families, 7 Mountain Dews, Carson. 6 lost Caleb's. Where's Caleb? 5 hours of now at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends at a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things our youth did these things. 10 church services, Caleb played 9 squares, 8 families, 7 Mountain Dews, Carson. 6 lost Caleb's. Where's Caleb? 5 hours of now at the airport.
church services, Caleb played night square. 8 families, 7 Mountain Dews, Carson. 6 lost Caleb's.
Where's Caleb?
5 hours of mile at the airport. 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends, and a conference in Tacoma. On the 6th year of higher things are used in these things. 12 youth plus Richard, 10 clothe participants, 10 church services, Caleb played night squares, 8 families, 7 Mountain Dews, Carson, 6 lost Caleb's.
Where's Caleb?
5 hours of mouth at the airport, 4 chaperones, 3 daily meals, 2 new friends, and a conference in Tacoma. Quick explanation. Lost Caleb because we could never find Caleb.
Caleb decided to go off on his own. At one point, he went to a church service by himself and sat in the front instead of where he normally sat. So poor Miss Suzanne had to go out looking for him through the entire service until Isabella texted her because somebody left their seat and was like, "There's Caleb sitting in the front." And we're like,
This is what happens when Lutherans have to change where they sit in the church. Really the truth. Dangerous business. Well, I'm really kind of beside myself with that presentation. I'm not even sure what to say about it. But thank you very much, youth. That was.
I had some of their books up there.
Yes, and if you want to take a look afterwards, I can just pass some of these around. These are the conference books and the worship books. Kind of start those so people can see them. That would be grand. But it is really quite an experience. One other thing I would mention about it while I'm getting back to where we were is they are remarkably well behaved. And I kind of didn't want to tell them that because I don't want to give them a big head about it. But you know, traveling with 13 high schoolish age kids can sort of be terrifying sometimes, and can be very difficult. But they really are a wonderful group of kids, and we didn't have, despite losing Caleb every so often, we didn't really have any meaningful problems at all with behavior or anything, which I think is pretty cool. And a good testimony.
As a chaperone, I'd like to say that parents should be proud of their kids.
Yeah, that's really true. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a parent.
No, they took care of one another.
Yeah, they did. They did. So even though Caleb got lost, they found him. So that's a good thing. Marion.
I have a question.
Yes.
The organ in Lagos Hall is one of the most fabulous organs in the country. Did you get to hear it?
We did.
And did Renata get to play it?
And she did, in fact. Yeah, they have a fabulous instrument there. They hired things kind of converts whatever the best available space is for their worship, and that's one of the priorities that they take for doing this. This is on the campus of Pacific Lutheran University, which is an ELCA college. And this is their concert hall. They converted their chapel literally into a museum, which is kind of unfortunate. But this is their concert hall, and so it didn't actually take a whole lot to make it look like a worship space. But it's an amazing organ, yeah. And so we snuck Renata up there one afternoon and had her play. So Bach, obviously. There you go. Any other questions or comments on that? Thanks again for indulging us and having them do that. It's always a good thing. We have about 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes? We got 10 minutes. We can look at the Bible for 10 minutes. It's okay. Because we were basically halfway through the parable of the sheep and the goats with this in Matthew chapter 25. And so what I want to look at is this second half, beginning in verse 41. Then he, the king, will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal hellfire, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they also will answer, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So we get a couple of sort of comparisons in here. We have the right and the left. So these are the ones on the left, and the right are the sheep, and the left are the goats. Yes, Mary.
Can I ask what the meaning of right and left is? Because you always see in God's right hand. What is it? God was right-handed.
And this is that's an excellent question. This is a royal image, and the person who sits at the right hand of the king is the king's man, who is the king's executor, the exo,
his champion.
He's the guy that gets stuff done. So, and just in case you didn't think I was hip and relevant, if any of you have watched Game of Thrones, there is a character on Game of Thrones called the Hand, right? He is the right hand, and he is the one who executes. Who executes? Let's just leave it at that. So that's where the image comes from. And so to be on the right is to be in the king's favor, and to do his work. To be at the left is to not be in the king's favor. That's kind of the image there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Very good question. So we get the right and the left, the sheep and the goats, and then "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." Now, who was heaven prepared for? Do you remember? I know I'm asking something from a week ago. Was it a week ago? Feels like it was a month ago. Who was the right prepared for?
Jews.
Blessed.
For Jesus.
Come you blessed. There you will place it. Come you blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you before the foundation of the world. You notice the difference there? So the kingdom is prepared for the blessed from before the foundation of the world. The place for the cursed is prepared for the devil and his angels. It is not prepared for the cursed before the foundation of the world. What would we call that?
What would we call if it was prepared for them?
Yeah.
Double decision, or what is that?
Double jeopardy. There you go. I like that. Double predestination. Yeah. That the idea that God, before eternity, chooses some for heaven and some for hell. That's called double predestination. And so, I would argue, in a beautifully Lutheran way, we have a paradox where heaven is prepared for the righteous before the foundation of the world. Hell is prepared for the devil, and the cursed are cast there, but it is not their original intent. It is not God's original intention behind it. Now that is a whole huge topic, which might be an interesting one to discuss at some point. But I just want to kind of point out this contrast here between the blessed and the cursed, and why you get some that are blessed and some that are cursed. So I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was hungry, you gave me no food. I was a stranger, you didn't welcome me. Naked, you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. And then the cursed say, what? Why did we do all of that? we didn't do any of that. And then Jesus replies, or the king replies, whenever you have done this to the least of these, you did not do it to me. In other words, the righteous don't know the good that they do, and the unrighteous, or the cursed as we get it here, and the cursed do not know the evil that they do. And which, at least to my mind, brings forward that verse from Jesus on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Is that what you were going to mention, Dennis, or something else?
That and this whole vision itself should remind us of the fact that when we deal with one another, we're not dealing with just one another. We're dealing with Christ.
Right.
Every single time we have an interaction with somebody else, I'm Christ to them, they're Christ to me.
Yeah.
And we have to treat each other gently
and
with respect.
And that changes how we look at other people. Really. I speak about that briefly in the sermon this morning, that when you treat someone as an enemy, a part of what you do with an enemy, whomever it is you dehumanize them. You turn them into an object. You make it so that there is no sympathy or empathy for this enemy. Because if you have sympathy for the enemy, then you're not likely to treat them like an enemy so much, right? So that's that, and in kind of in contrary, when you humanize someone you don't know, you find out that they're a lot more like you than you may have realized. And that is kind of an across-the-board thing. That is not a new, that's not just a one context. You guys are making me nervous. Yeah. What are you doing?
You're out, we're in.
All right.
Wow, it's a hostile
This
takeover.
scares me. It is a hostile takeover.
It is a hostile takeover. For those of you that are not aware, our blessed pastor is celebrating a birthday on Friday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear pastor. Happy birthday to you.
You're actually released to go downstairs. They need you downstairs.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Do I have to come back?
No.
That's even better. This is a birthday present.
Ouch! You're hurting our feelings.
Grab my jacket then. I'm out of here.
Let's go. Are we
Okay,
going to talk about it?
children, you need to be singing the birthday song again with him as he leaves. Go with him.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
You're on the elevator?
So, again. Walt, myself, and Levi were just asked yesterday to interrupt at 5 minutes after 10 so that Pastor, we can sing happy birthday to Pastor. We're going to sit up here for another minute or two, and then we're going to follow. He's going down there to take a look at his birthday cake before they cut it. So, in just another moment or so, we'll leave, and you're all welcome to enjoy his birthday cake downstairs in the fellowship hall. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Talk amongst yourselves.
I was a prison guard. Does that help with the visiting in prison?
Yes.
I'm keeping them from killing each other.
ceramic cups, bring them back to the fellowship hall.
Okay, so we'll see you downstairs.